Hello folks, BitBrew.com here. Here's a standard tape for you that I thought I lost, but in fact I didn't. This is blue-white tempo, rogue kinda semi-casual, semi-budget list against my, I hope, competitive enough Giant Aggro list based on the Elves package. It's basically a Giant Aggro deck, just with a sub-theme with elves. This was recorded actually on the first day, right before the game days weekend, so technically it's a bit old, but it still retains its value. Right now metagame is not really shifting that much. Actually we have all the same decks, and blue-white is something that you can just do in the format without huge investments, without getting everything for your Dark Jeskai deck. What this essentially is tempo aggro control deck. I mean blue-white here. The main hitters, in fact almost the only hitters in the whole deck, would be Harbinger of the Tides as your 2-drop for Jitai's command and such, Seeker of the Way, and then 4 copies of Dragonlord Ojitai. Plus also, as far as I remember, 3 main deck Icebreak regions, because you have 7 dragons. For Silumgar scores are alright, so you're a heavy blue deck because of the Harbinger and also Silumgar Scorn. And then the rest of your deck is just your Silk Wraps, your Status Snares, your other removal. As a result of this playtest session, a friend of mine on the left actually added Valorous Stance to the deck, 1-1 splits, also 1-1 split for Violent, Planar Outburst. So he just laid down an island and passed. I fetched a swamp with a Bloodstained Mar to cast Archer. Turn to just plain Seeker. Because of the fetch lands, you could probably easily splash black here, but it depends whether you really want to or not. Depends on your available tools. My turn 2 was pretty decent. The Dwine and Salites bring in a friend to the table. Stream for him, so 3 mana up. Definitely didn't attack with the Archer because there was Seeker out there seeking my attacks so that he can block. Bit of adjustment here so that you can actually see everything more closely and more visibly. He just cast a Retreat to Coral Helm, triggering a lifelink on the Seeker. It's a 3/3. I don't want to trade my guys here for that, even though this way I'm going down to 15 because I took a pain from a fetch land plus the pain land, the Llanowar Wastes. So yeah, basically if you want a deck for something like a FNM, for some regular tournaments at your store, so this blue-white is okay. Of course, if you didn't already have Dragonlord Ojitais, this might be problematic, but Dragonlord Ojitai right now is still valuable, but not insanely valuable. What I did on my third turn was cast a Shaman of the Pack, training for 4, attacking with the team for extra punch, so put him down to 14. Retreat here I think is a one-off. It's just a good synergy card for your Ojitais and all that. Also synergetic with the Harbinger of the Tides because of the fetch lands kind of represents the combo trick. Well, it can basically fog for a turn. If you have like a 1 or 2 fetches lie down, it also allows your creatures to actually get there by tapping their guys. It also lets you scry, just like Tassa. He lays down 4th land, decides to scry instead of tapping anything. Tanks for a while, considers whether to push it to the bottom or not. He's in kind of a tough spot here. Anyways, it's a playable deck, which is just 2 colors, and it doesn't have Jaces in it, even though that will definitely be an improvement. And then adding additional Dragonlord, not Dragonlord, Ojutai's commands will be also a big improvement. But this is just something that you can use for regular play in case you don't have a large card pool. Of course, with the fetches you open up yourself for a lot of possibilities with the black splash, but then you might as well then go all the way up to like Esper Dragons or some variant, or Esper Super Friends. Gideon of course will be a great card here as well, but if you don't want to invest like at least 100 or 2 and still get decent results, this is what you're gonna play probably. There are still a couple of awkward cards left in this deck because we didn't optimize his builds a huge deal before the game day that weekend. Touch of the White Hero on his Seeker. To save his guy he would need to play 2 spells here, which I think is unrealistic, just to save his guy. So that opened up me the door to attack for a bunch. He has 4 mana up, double blue as well, so that nasty Merfolk is a thing. This is why I shouldn't attack here with my whole team. So attacking with Allied and the Shaman, and I'm fine if he decides to bounce either of them. His ideal scenario is actually to bounce the Allied and block the Shaman, because bouncing the Shaman is probably much more annoying for him. Gives me extra reach, and it's the same total power added to the board if either of them resolves. Ojutai's command plus the Harbinger is also a good trick. You sort of set yourself up for 2-for-1 removal in a way. Not exactly 2-for-1, but well, actually I would say that might be even 3-for-1 in some situations, because you gotta counter a creature, bring back Harbinger, bounce something. Well, basically, no, you wouldn't counter anything. You would just draw a card. So here you see Ojutai's command, which was just absolute disaster for me. He brings Harbinger, he counters the Dwayne and the Elvish Lord. So yeah, in cases when they're about to attack, they're attacking with Agitate's command plus Harbinger. You get to draw a card, bring it up, bounce their guy, possibly trade with something as well. So it's great. It's a great creature. It's quite underestimated right now because double blue is a big deal this early. It's way easier to cast Jace turn 2 or something like this in Dark Jeskai because of all the full colors. But here in the heavy blue deck, it's no big deal. He just cast a morph, and I know that the only one morph in his deck is the Stratos Dancer. It's a very fine card, so we just wanted more to bring back with the Agitate's command and something which is a creature with value. He does have 2 to counter a next spell of mine, particularly instant or sorcery. I actually think before casting that the morph, he should have fetched. He was not too low on life. Of course, like, that gives him a chance to react to some attackers, saving some damage maybe. I don't know, like, it depends on what he had in his hand at this point. Also gives him a chance to scry or tap one of my guys. I don't have that many instant guys, so he ends up fetching for an island to cast Silumgar's Scorn and counter my allied, which he early on bounced back, showed me Ojutai so that I cannot pay 1, and it's just a hard counter, but I drew a second one of those, so making things kinda hard for him here. He still has that Stratos Dancer there. Land wouldn't be too bad for him, because that would allow him to, well, especially a fetchland would be pretty good here. Tapping some of my guys, allowing him to block. But he needed something. I really flooded the board with a bunch of small stuff. He definitely would much rather prefer me to just play one large guy or something like that. Play the land, scryed, kept it on top, cast Ojutai, 1 mana up, so he can't counter anything here. As you can see, I do have another Touch of the Void in my hand and an Elvish Visionary at this stage. Probably want to start with Visionary first. Gonna take 1 here anyways, because I want to keep that Cinderglade in case I would want to cast Touch of the Void. Thinking about my attacks here, I actually decide to attack with the whole team, because I'm dead in a couple of turns to his Ojutai anyway. So I need to push that damage somehow. I think before blocks I should have killed his Stratos Dancer with the touch. This would allow him to not eat the token, to not have a free to flyer next turn. So that was a big mistake here this turn. The line that I somehow missed. Basically, well, he took 5 total. No, he already took the 1 from the archer. He takes 4 more, goes down to 8. So I allowed him to actually eat an extra guy, which is kind of a bummer. And also saved him 1 damage here. Then I realized a mistake, because I don't wanna give him a chance to just get a land and tap my visionary so that I can't block his Harbinger. So cast a touch anyway on the Stratos Dancer. He has 7 on board. It's just attacking with the Ojutai. I would fall down to 4. He's at 8. I would need a Dwayne, so the guy with the reach, or some of the haste guys, or for example Butcher of the Horde. No, it's not the Butcher, it's the Brutal Horde Chief. Plays the Seeker. Pass the turn. So I'm dead to his next attack from Oju. Yeah, all I have is a Death Dealer and another Elite. There were quite a few good top decks here, even for this main deck configuration. Something like Horde Chief. Dwayne also keeps me alive, though he can always tap it if he draws a land. Horde Chief, well, keeps me alive and pushes a lot of damage through. Though I'm not sure if it was definite that that would have been the Seal Dealer. Or deal sealer, sorry. Definitely the Colligan would have been a great top deck here. Another touch maybe would do the trick, because he would end up taking 4. No, what was it? 3. Fall down to 5. Nah, probably won't do the trick here. Top deck Andrana would have kept me alive, potentially. But after sideboards, it's a little bit easier for me. I get to board in some disruption, some removal spells. I think at this point I still ran the Empty of the Pits in the sideboard. Felt like this is not a matchup for Evolutionary Leap. I'm not entirely sure if I boarded in here or not. Then what was that? Yeah, more removal and etc. Right now, during the weekend when everybody's watching Seattle or Philly, by now I replaced the Empty of the Pits in the Giant Aggro list with Outpost Stage in the sideboard, and I also get myself at least one Rending Volley. I might be getting myself a second one, so instead of the sum of the cards in the sideboard, maybe trimming some numbers. But I probably do want 2 in the sideboard for Dark Jeskai, which is not going anywhere. It's arguably the best deck in the format. It's pretty annoying and tough to play against, and it's one of the best cards in that matchup, and it contributes to such big percentage of the metagame in Standard right now, so that playing those 2 is not a bad idea. It's actually okay in a lot of other matchups. Well, not a lot, but it's not just Dark Jeskai. I find it reasonable to maybe bring one copy of it against Abzan because it hits on Offenza, but probably not two against White Winnie type of decks. You're probably gonna bring it in. Would definitely have been great in this matchup as well, for sure. Probably wouldn't bring it in against Megamorphs, because like most of their creatures are just green, so it's not spectacular there. But still, Dark Jeskai is such a huge factor that you have to have cards like this in your sideboard if you have access to red. And replacing Empty the Pits, Empty of the Pits with Outpost Siege in the sideboard was just something I wanted to actually do back then, but wasn't so sure. I loved how explosive Empty the Pits could be in the late game when you exhausted your resources and it's an instant and you have your graveyard full there, and sometimes if they don't have a thing like this spell, you could just win out to nowhere. So I really liked that, but in practice it turned out to be that against some decks where I would want to side it in, by the time I would be able to do enough with it, I would be either that or too far behind. It doesn't match up well against just a crowd of Mantis Riders, for example. It's a card that I wish I would be able to test out more, but Outpost Siege just seems much safer, and it does a similar function. Next to us, a friend of mine like just playing against a Dark Red with the Abzan. I think that was the matchup they were playtesting at the same time as we did. So stream tapped. In my case, I unloaded my hands with Trapper into Visionary plus Trapper. He bounced the Trapper thanks to Harbinger, busting off the Blasting Mar for Cinderglade, because I have two swamps in play, so that one will come in untapped. At this point we played a few games, also I think maybe at least one off camera before this, so at this point he knows what Trapper does, and he's normally a very attentive person, but I don't remember exactly what he did. Oh yeah, he actually forgot this, so at this point he forgot this, but after that he learned his lesson and actually never fell for this. So that was the second game where I got him, but after that there was never a situation like this. That evening, so we played the Trapper the turn before, and Death Dealer, he just passed the turn and did nothing on his turn, so now it's my turn again. Just attacking with the team. He can't really flash in Harbinger on free land, so decide to attack with everybody. I have two activations up for Death Dealer, but a lot of his removal is stuff like Status Snare and Silk Wrap, so it doesn't make a lot of sense to keep mana up against his deck, but definitely it's a smart thing to do oftentimes against Dark Jeskai. So I decided to pump my guy once, but he had the response, Status Snare. Bear in mind that that card has Flash, which is pretty annoying. So just played another Death Dealer and passed the turn. What he needs here is probably a land and then something like Ojutai's command. The way he taps his mana here makes it kind of obvious that he has a Silumgar Scorn. Anyways, I had mana to spear and cast a Touch of the Void. He didn't, I guess, have a dragon to show. Swing with the team. Somehow I decided not. Oh no, did I? Yeah. Decided not to pump, just to play another Death Dealer. So that was the thing. Huh. So I guess he just didn't have Scorn here. Just tried to bluff it. That's my guess. Or maybe he just had a Valorous Stance in hand or something like that. Hardcast Ojutai, but that's a little bit too late. I have too much pressure going on. If he had something like Planar Outburst right there, that would be pretty brutal. But he added them to the deck only after this session, so I knew his configuration, I knew what to play around. But your opponent most likely wouldn't really know exactly what you're playing if you decide to pick up one of these decks, in particular the blue-white. Attack with the Death Dealers and one Trapper, so that he doesn't get to eat the Trapper for free. He doesn't block, so I decided to pump one of the kitties for the full amount available, puts him down to 2, and that must be it. Has a Haven, which I think I forced him to take out from the deck later on, because it was messing up with his cards quite a bit. Bring back Regent or Ojutai is quite powerful, but I'm not sure you can afford to do that in that deck, even with one copy, because you have Stasis Snare with that has double white there. Then you might want to play Curtain Field in the deck too, and you definitely want to be able to often have double blue quickly for the Harbinger. If it would be less of a budget list, so probably then Haven would be quite okay, because then you would have Jaces and etc. You wouldn't play Harbinger. Also, it messes up your mana for the Silumgar Scorn, and because this is a tempo deck, this is not so much control-ish, and you can't just afford to sometimes hold on and just sit there and do nothing and hope to draw reactive spells. This deck doesn't have that many of them. Goes for main deck Ojutai's command to gain 4 and bring in Harbinger, and probably bounce one of my kitties. He can't really afford to attack with Ojutai here, I believe. Or can he? Depending on what he hands as leftovers in his hand, I would actually. Because he has a chump blocker for the kitty. This way he puts me onto a 3-turn clock, so 2 more attacks after this. And if he somehow finds a way to contain the kitties, he's actually okay. But in fact, it seems like he just passed the turn, and I just attacked with all my guys here for some reason. So I pumped the kitty, and she sat at 1 Trapper for some reason. Oh yeah, I just wanted to play out my hand, right? So just overload on the kitties. Just overload on the kitties. Yeah, if I would know that he has Outburst in his deck, then I probably wouldn't play it like this. Probably would have played it more safely. But in this situation, there's pretty much nothing he can do. He might have like 2 removals for a couple of kitties, but then the remaining one is gonna wreck him. So he hit 1 with the Silk Wrap, but still 2 are attacking, and I have like quite a bit of mana. He still had that sorcerer in his deck at this point, but I think we'll later take it out. It's something to consider. It's not the worst card, but in this build you don't have that many creatures to eat to be able to counter a creature. 3 mana counter guy like is not amazing in a deck that doesn't have much to sacrifice. So yeah, he drew for the turn and realized that yeah, there is no way he can answer all of this before dying. So now we went on to sideboarding, I believe, or did I? No, I think yeah, we sideboarded already. I guess it just so happened that I didn't draw my sideboard cards. Because Touch of the Void is main deck. Reminding you guys. So now for the deciding game. Game 3 of the match. There are lots of things you can do with the blue-white if your goal is just to keep it more or less competitive, to have good chances at your regular events in the store. What I would advise you is just to think of like where your metagame is at. If your metagame is just the same as everywhere, you're tailoring less in terms of strategy, but more in terms of answering those major threats. So if your metagame is too fast, so don't even think of, about like Carrington Field. If you have a lot of abs and aggro at your store or among your friends, you might want to play more of the Valor stances in the main deck. Definitely, even in this kind of configuration, you want at least 2 Ogitized commands. Also, depending on the metagame, Stratus Dancer might not be great as a main deck material. Same applies to Dispel. I think it's okay to play 1 main deck when sideboard. In pretty much any meta game, because every deck has quite a few targets. The problem with this deck, because without G's, it's hard to configure it right in a more flexible manner. You don't have this power to just filter through your hand for your top decks. or to dig that much. Also because this is such a tempo deck and you don't have chase to fill your graveyard so quickly. Dig for time is okay in this tempo deck as well, but maybe just maximum as 2 off. Anticipate is a fine card. I don't hate running like 1 copy here in that blue-white deck, but probably not more than that. Harbinger bounces back the Trapper. Sadly he couldn't do that on instant speed, so that the light wouldn't give me the token. I attack with a light into his Harbinger because I want to exhaust his resources rather, because I know that there are very few, well, fewer than in my deck, action cards in his deck, and I think my deck was pretty loaded on action. No, I'm not entirely sure because I just played a Trapper and passed. I guess I just had a bunch of removal spells in my hands, like Self-Inflicted, Murderous Cut and such. So he got that stream team 3 mana morph. That's we know it's Stratus Dancer, but this deck could also use some copies of Hidden Dragon Slayer. Lifelink kills big guys. Definitely at least a 1-off in the sideboard, and depending on the amount of Abs and Aggro in your metagame locally, you might want like 1 or even 2 main deck. It's also another creature to bring back with Ojutai's command, not that spectacular, but it's okay. But because you're playing a few copies of Erishin Cleric in the sideboard, so 1 Ojutai's command is very low, so you want at least 2. Especially with my guys, he takes 1 from the trigger. Whatever he blocks, his guy's gonna die because of the Trapper, so he doesn't block, doesn't fall for that trick again. As mentioned, land number 5, which is a bit too much, So this means that I don't have any more creatures there, so just reactive spells. But I didn't feel too bad on setting in a bunch of removals against him, because, well, cards like Empty of the Pits and just having those removals helps quite a bit. Maybe I should have sided in at least 1 evolutionary leap, I don't know. With the leap in play and at least some green mana untapped, I can get value out of my guys before they get exiled by Silk Wrap instead of Snare. From Grasp the Mines, and I look at the hand full of a lot of things. He has the counter spell with Awaken, at least 1. Silumgar's Scorn, Silk Wrap, 2 Silk Wraps, in fact, and then 2 Seismic Snare, and that's counter, as I mentioned. A lot of stuff, but he's tacked on freelance, so he can't really cast everything. I take away the counter spell. So here I realized that, yeah, probably should have sided in at least 1 copy of the leap against him because of hands like this. go for self-linked ones so that I can eat away his Seeker. He takes 2 from the ones, then I crack in for 4 more. He's at 8, but he has all the removal in the world. All the removal in the world, but what he doesn't have is a lot of time. But I'm not applying an insane amount of pressure here. Decides to not attack and not cast anything here. Before I draw my card, so end of turn, I want to crack the fetch so that there is less a chance for me of drawing lands. Cinder Glade already in place, so I can only get the marsh, well, or a forest. But grabbing that gives me 4 black sources if I draw Amped of the Pits, or second red for something. I don't think I didn't board in the Arc Lightning, and I took out the Brutal Hardship, so yeah, it's just 4 black. For the empty. Attacking with the token and the archer. Before blocks he goes for snare, targets trapper. I make the archer death touch because that's the one I wanna keep. Then he blocks the token, that's fine. He falls down to 6. Play another trapper. Pretty low in action. No. He hits land number 4. Now he can do 2 things per turn. So grabs away the trapper. I'm in a pretty awkward spot. He still has the 1 more snare and 1 more silk wrap. Death Dealer. Another great target for him to exile. Land number 5. He decides to silk grab the kitty. Yeah, that's okay. Because this way, if I happen to have a haze guy like Call Again, he gets to exile it at instant speed. I'm not sure if I kept the Call Again in the deck though. It's a lot of mana against the deck with a lot of removal. At least I kept the Drana. At least I kept the Drana. Drana eats a status snare. A lot of detained creatures here. He just hits another land. But doesn't draw anything to try to start to raise me. No Ojutai, no Regent. I'm flooding a little bit as well. You can't really afford to attack with that morph because that archer still represents some damage and he doesn't have any life gain sources here. Played Wine and Light, no responses, so I do get my token. So somehow I'm top decking better than him here. He just draws another land. So attack just with the ally so that he doesn't get to eat any of the other creatures. He takes it because that Stratus Dancer is more important. Plus it could counter the burn spell, the touch. so that I can touch him. Attacking with the light again. This time he's offering the trade. Or not so much. Valor stands on his guy to keep it alive. That's fine. Now I have Drana again. He only had 2 wraps and 2 stasis in his deck here, but also like he had some Valorous stances as well. Also another nice card in that deck, which you may want in the deck or may not. It depends. Mentor, Monastery Mentor. It's probably much better in a deck with more cheap spells, so it's much better in a version with red because of all the wild slashes and fairy impulses. It's also a card that I think some Dark Jeskai should try out, at least on the sideboard. Because if it resolves, and even if they try to kill it, like you still get value by casting some cheap spells and making more tokens. I think it's a really underplayed card. He goes for actually Silumgar's Scorn, showing me some dragon, I believe, to counter that wound, which would otherwise eating something. I think it was a bit of a mistake to... No, actually it was correct to try to play here, because then it would either pop out the Stratus Dancer, and he definitely couldn't let it resolve. He falls down to 1 after the trigger from the Archer, and the attack from Drana, then it gets counters on all of my guys. He actually decides to scoop it up. And I did have even Empty the Pits in my hand, though I tapped the wrong way, sadly. Like, couldn't cast it right there, because cut myself off 1 spare black sword. So there you have it. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and my advice is to end with the walkthroughs for the decks. And see you next time. Goodbye, folks.